it's not about just the logo. It's not just about the tagline or the way, the site, and some of it is, that's all
It's the
part of
stories
it.
you tell. It's the
But
stories
it's
you
the
tell,
stories you tell, and
right?
everywhere you tell them, whether it's on the website or
Right.
someone answering a call, someone's inquiring on a phone call, or the stories they hear from a reference that you're giving them. It's all the story in the videos that you're showing. So it's all about, understanding your audience, what their needs are, what they're wanting to ingest to make a decision, but then also delivering on the experience that you would promise that your brand promises, right? You want to deliver on that, because if you don't, then they're going to have a bad impression of your brand and start to tell everyone else about that, and you don't want that. You need to really think through every touch point and what kind of experience they're getting.
Welcome to World of Marketing Podcast, a Foster Web Marketing production. Here's your host, Tom Foster.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the World of Marketing, where I talk with industry leaders about marketing mindset and business growth. This episode is brought to you by my own company, Foster Web Marketing. Foster Web Marketing is dedicated to providing cutting-edge, highly customizable websites, marketing, video, and strategic solutions specifically designed for law firms, medical practices, and other professional service businesses. Our award-winning web technology and marketing systems set us apart from everyone else. Please visit our website at fosterwebmarketing.com if you want to know more. But today is about a champion of bold ideas, an agent of change, and a firm believer that marketing is not the savior, but the amplifier. I love this. Carolyn Walker is the CEO and managing partner of Response, an independent marketing agency in New Haven, Connecticut. Carolyn honed her thinking and skills over 20 years in senior management, building revenues and maximizing market competitiveness for multi-billion dollar corporations. So everybody, Carolyn and I were just talking minutes before the call and just got into it. I had to press record because I'm really excited to talk to you, Carolyn, because from one marketer to another, I love it. I love what you're doing.
Thank you. It's really, really nice to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, because Carolyn does all the marketing. We do at Foster Web Marketing, we do build websites and focus on digital, right? But before I had a digital marketing company or a website company, I was a marketer that did everything else. You had to worry about magazines and print and TV and radio and all that stuff. And that's all you had before the internet. Mm-hmm. And that's still there, everybody. And that's the point, right? Is that when the internet was born, everybody went woof over here, right? And kind of like what happened to magazines and what happened to print and what happened to TV and what happened to radio, what happened to all of that stuff. That stuff is still out there, big time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. Absolutely. I've been in the space, like you said, for decades. I've been leading Response for the last 15 years or so. And, we work with these brands with ambition to do more and be more than they currently are and help them punch above their weight. And we do it with this combination of brand building plus performance marketing. And, the performance marketing piece has really gone, like you're saying, very much down the digital road because there's so much measurement and attribution around digital, right? So you put the impressions out there in the digital universe and you can see, I've got, this many impressions, I've gotten this many clicks, I've gotten this many clicks to a landing page that has an offer on it. And so many people put that offer in their cart and I can see the conversion. So
it's easy to track. It's
very easy to track and very easy to track almost instantaneously.
Right.
So you can make shifts right on the fly. You talk to your digital media agency. They'll tell you we're going to optimize on a daily, weekly basis because you can see what's working, what's not working really, really quickly. The problem with that we see is that marketers over the last decade or so have, seen the power of digital and see the attribution. And of course, their CFOs love that too, by the way, and say, okay, you need this marketing budget and this is how you're going to spend it, because they could see the measurement and the result of it. But like I said, the problem is to the detriment of brand in many cases, where you're pulling money out of, say, promoting the brand overall and putting it more in these short-term, sales building efforts, primarily digital, and forgetting about the long-term efforts that are needed in a brand campaign, right?
Right.
To get those people that are out of market, that are not looking at buying today, but are those future buyers of your product or service down the road. And when you forget about them, you erode your base sales, because you cannot rely on that small group of people in market today or current customers today. So we're seeing that as an issue. There's a lot of conversation around it today. There's, thought leaders in the space like Les Binet and Peter Field, who talk about, the effectiveness of advertising and, what's the rule in terms of how much should be spent on brand versus performance and things like that. And so, we follow these people. We've talked to a lot of the experts, and not only that, but we've seen ourselves with the work that we do with our clients, how beneficial it is to have both, right? And to educate our clients on the power of having both.
Well, I'm super impressed with your portfolio, with the clients that you've worked with, Logitech, Carrier, and CorelDRAW. Like when I saw that, I used to use that. And I was like, wow. So what did you rebranded them? Did you bring them back? What was that all about?
So the CorelDRAW situation was, they were actually relaunching that product. And they were relaunching their product specifically towards the Mac audience. They had basically their prior version was a version of Draw where they basically kind of did this adaptation for Mac that wasn't that great, and so they relaunched it to the Mac audience, and we helped them build a campaign around that reintroduction of that specific product to the Mac audience.
Wow! And you were just going against the
behemoth.
The behemoth.
Yeah.
Well, good for
you, man.
And
it did quite well. It did quite well, actually. So it was very exciting project that we worked on there with them.
McAfee too? You got that?
McAfee, yeah. McAfee's
I said it wrong.
Yeah, no worries. Huge brand. They recently broke up their consumer and B2B businesses, but we worked with them for a really long time on the B2C side. And, I'll tell you a little interesting story about them, and as it relates to this kind of performance versus brand marketing topic is we worked with them for about 10 years, and from 2006 to 2016, and the kind of persistent, persistent and beyond that. But at that time in 2016, our persistent challenge over the prior 10 years was that, consumers of security software are very apathetic, right? They buy it, they put it on their machine, they set it, forget it. They don't want to hear about you or anything. They just want to know that they're protected.
Right.
And guess when they do kind of have opinion about the software is when what happens? Something happens to them themselves, right? They're hacked, or they lose their identity, or they've been phished or scammed in some way. And at that point, they're kind of have this negative feeling about the brand. Right. And so that's a problem. And so that was a challenge that we had as marketers. And so we looked at the brand, and it was, like I said, it was 2016. Podcasting was becoming incredibly popular, especially not for B2B, but for everything else, right? More consumer stuff. And, I started to listen when everyone else started listening, when Serial became super popular, if you remember that. And, I listened to the show, and I just thought, oh my gosh, I cannot believe the power of this medium. It's, it's theater of the mind, right? You're listening and you're creating these stories in your head with the narration. And it was just brilliant. And I became obsessed. I was literally, ingesting as much as I possibly could from Serial to Invisibilia to This American Life to The Moth. Like I just couldn't get
Isn't
enough.
that fascinating? How like
Yes,
that has just come back.
I know.
That's like old radio. That's
I
old
know. It
radio.
was
Like
really crazy, right?
it's
And
nuts
no,
how
totally
human
nuts. But the
beings are.
digital space made this all possible,
But
right?
I
Where you
know,
can
but that is exactly what we're talking about here, about how you cannot ignore
can't.
you can't ignore the other stuff for the new stuff.
Right. That's exactly right. Yep. And what we did
It's all connected.
it's all connected. And what we did with McAfee is we suggested to them to create a branded podcast and use this, new medium, essentially new medium, to tell a story in a very kind of entertaining way about cybersecurity because people were apathetic, right? They didn't really care. But we knew that entertaining them and educating them in an
People love
entertaining way.
stories. Yeah, for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Would be a great way to get people to listen to McAfee. And that's what we did. We created a branded podcast for them. We called it Hackable with a question mark. The question mark was very intentional because we were, saying, is this hackable or not? You heard all these stories in popular culture, right? From Mr. Robot to Black Mirror to CSI Cyber to what's in the headlines. You're hearing all these stories. You're like, I don't, as a consumer, I don't know is this true? Is it not true? What should I do? And so the format of the show was we took those we ripped kind of the headlines or the things from pop culture and recreated them in the audio space, and then brought in white hat hackers to test, is this really true or not, kind of Mythbuster style. And then we gave them tips and tricks to stay safe. And it was an incredibly popular show. It was 25-minute format. We kept them short because we knew people were listening to podcasts when they're doing other things like working out or doing the laundry or housework or driving in their car, right?
Right.
We kept it very short, and it was immensely popular. I mean, marketed it really, really well. And what I'll say about the marketing side is, we were talking about brand versus performance, and we went out with a plan that definitely fished where the fish were, but we went out with a very curated plan of targeting other podcasts that were to be in podcast, do in podcast advertising and other podcasts that had content that would align with our content. So we weren't buying the audience, like the person, we were buying the show. Like we wanted to buy the shows that our show would be, that people were listening to, that we thought that our show would be interesting to them because they were listening to this other show. And we put like 95% of our budget there, and the rest of it was spent in digital, more targeted tactics to get that, to be more conversion oriented. But what we found out is that combination worked really well, right? Building the brand by talking about it on other podcasts, and then having, the social media and the other things, other tactical things to help them get into the show out there as well. And the show was amazing. It was in the top 1% of all podcasts ever produced on the planet.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Over 3 million downloads over 5 seasons. It was incredible.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Was that during when the Netflix show was out too?
So no, that started. So our stuff started in 2017. I think actually there was probably some overlap with the Netflix show, which was
right. That was
a crazy show.
Yeah, crazy. Well, good for you, man. How do you get these great brands? How do you get them? I mean, good. I'm just so blown away by it. I mean,
thank you.
I mean,
yeah, I mean, like
really
it's
fantastic.
It's probably similar to you, I would think. It's a lot of our business has come organically to us, and for example, so I did not found Response. It was founded by 2 other guys, one of which had worked at Stanley Black & Decker. Well, it was just Black & Decker at the time. And so we started working with Black & Decker. And then one of the folks at Black & Decker sat on the board of the Boomer Esiason Foundation, and also this woman from Logitech sat on the Boomer Esiason Foundation.
Wow.
And so that started that relationship, and we ended up doing a football promotion for Logitech with the Boomer Esiason Foundation included. And so that relationship started, right? And then so we started meeting all these people in Logitech, and then people left Logitech and went to other businesses, other companies like McAfee.
Yeah, it's just
And it
referral,
just,
referral. Yeah, yeah.
so it was
People
all
like
really kind of, networking and who you know. And
people
I
like to
think,
work with people they like.
yes, and like, listen, I think it's one of the best compliments you can get as an agency is when someone leaves one of the, a client that you're working with and goes to another business and they reach out to you. Like they wouldn't reach out to you if your work wasn't good and they didn't
Right.
trust you, So I just am thrilled when clients, they get the experience somewhere, they go to another business and they reach out to us. It's amazing. And a lot of our growth has come that way. It's just through the people that we know and the networking that we've done.
So, Carolyn, I have a unique, well, not necessarily unique, but my marketing, I do mostly law firms and doctors, specifically podiatrists.
Yeah.
So they're in a certain kind of niche.
Dr. Brad, right?
Dr. Brad is my guy. Yeah. And so how do you look at those brands? Like, how do you, and how would you exploit those brands across the multiple mediums?
Yeah, I think, every business is a little different, clearly. And we actually do some work with a law firm here and there, and also work with healthcare brands as well, not podiatrists, but others. And, it is this balance. So I think you have to start with understanding budget.
Right.
And, a lot of people in professional services industries don't necessarily know a lot about marketing budgets, how to come to a marketing budget. And so there's guidance out there. And what we've seen is that, somewhere between on the low side, 2.5% to say, 6.5%, I've seen even upwards to 8.5% of your revenue, your sales number, your billings number should be allocated to marketing. And marketing meaning not just advertising, but your everything, right? So if you have to hire an agency, you have to hire someone internally, so it's the human capital of that. It's the MarTech stack that you might need, in terms of technology to support your site or to support your CRM, things like that. So think about that. What's your total budget? And then, from an advertising perspective, what we've seen is that it's pretty much like 25% of that budget is allocated to quote unquote advertising. And then from there, how do we build brand with advertising budget versus how do we get, people in the door? The direction that again, it's very, different business to business, but the allocation is somewhere between 25 and 50% should be allocated to performance. Then the remaining part is dedicated to brand. And what I mean on the brand side versus the performance side is think about the brand side as the longer term, wider audience. We're trying to reach the widest audience what we possibly can. So think of all of the people that potentially would want your services, podiatry or legal services in the next, year or two. We want to be able to get the brand out there to them, right?
And so how do you do that? How do you do
so
that?
it's a lot of video. So and where does that video run? It depends on
where does it go?
Exactly. So do you have multiple offices in one DMA where you can run, cable, or do we need to look at OTT, or do we need to have a full YouTube plan going on? So it's it's looking at that. I would say it's primarily video. It's if we can afford and broadcast makes sense. What broadcast might be in there. Just those broader mediums that reach a lot of people. And then, the rest of the budget is, okay, well, let's reach them. Let's get them interested. And then it's, okay, where are they at the state of conversion? What are the other things they're doing as they're looking to, for a law service or a podiatrist? And we have to show up where they are. Mostly, I would say, in the digital space.
Video content, good content.
Yes, great content.
answering their questions that they have, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's how you
Completely.
connect your brand to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, when you think about brand, it is about it, for me, I think many marketers out there, it's about experience. What kind of experience is your audience having? It's not about just the logo. It's not just about the tagline or the way, the site. And some of it is, that's all
It's the
part of it.
stories you tell. It's the
But
stories
it's
you
the
tell,
stories you tell, and
right?
everywhere you tell them, whether it's on the website or
Right,
someone answering a call, someone's inquiring on a phone call, or the stories they hear from a reference that you're giving them. It's all the story in the videos that you're showing. So it's all about, understanding your audience, what their needs are, what they're wanting to ingest to make a decision, but then also delivering on the experience that you would promise that your brand promises, right?
right,
You want to deliver on that, because if you don't, then they're going to have a bad impression of your brand and start to tell everyone else about that, and you don't want that. You
right.
need to really think through every touch point and what kind of experience they're getting, whether it is on the site or in person or on a call.
So what is performance marketing and why is it important?
So we talk in the realm of, brand marketing versus performance marketing. And performance marketing is really that activation marketing. How are we trying to get the sale? So that is really the part of marketing where we're really going after those in-market buyers. So, right, someone in the podiatry world is someone who has a foot issue today, someone in the looking for legal services, they have a legal problem today, whether they're
They're a
having a
car
family
accident.
issue or a car
Right,
accident,
right,
whatever it might be. So it's that short term, what
right.
are we doing right now to try and capture those people? And like we were talking about earlier, it tends to go digital, and it's easier to measure. Like we know that we connected with someone and that they went from an inquiry to a real client. It's typically, right, it's because we're trying to convert them, it's typically much narrower, right? We're looking for that specific person with a specific need today. And so that's the performance side. Like, what are we doing to convert people? And the brand side is that more long-term stuff that I was talking about earlier. So how are we reaching people and building brand and the perception of the brand to people who are not in market for our product or service today? It's usually more emotional. It's usually more video, right? It's the stuff that separates you from your competitors in many ways, because you can tell a bigger story, communicate your why as a brand in those kinds of messages. And it's really important because it's that piece that fortifies your existence. It enables you to compete on the long term, right?
Yeah, it's
And
very reactive. Yes.
yeah, exactly. So that's what we talk to all of our clients about. And I gave you the McAfee example
Yeah.
earlier. And I know this isn't in the field of maybe your audiences, but we've had a lot of success with this strategy too, with in the food and beverage industry with our client Uncle Julio's, and they had come to us several years back with this amazing dessert that they created. It was called the chocolate piñata, and it's this handmade ball of dark chocolate, and it's stuffed with fresh fruit and churros, and it's amazing. It comes out suspended on a piece of smallwares, and the guest gets a mallet, and they literally smash this
Oh,
chocolate piñata
wow.
open. It's awesome. It is really
That sounds
awesome.
delicious
It's
and
delicious, it's
fun.
unique, and it's fun, and it's so engaging. And it was so on brand for them. Their brand core belief is that when we can deliver exceptional experiences, it creates enduring memories. And their positioning is all about Mexican from scratch. So, this combination of who they are and how they're doing it through things like the chocolate piñata is just on brand. And so they came up with this dessert, and prior to us to us working with them, they were really leaning into audio as their primary channel. So like local radio. And we said, this thing needs to be seen. Like, you have to see this thing explode when people bash it open and how fun it is.
Yeah, you have to see the fun of it.
Yeah.
Right. You have to tell the story.
Exactly. So we convinced them, like, there's a big story here. Let's create a commercial. And they didn't think they were going to be able to afford television production, but we did it really cost effectively and got a great camera crew and team. And we did it in one of their stores in Dallas, Fort Worth. And then we also suggested to them, like as many people as possible need to see this. So we did a broadcast, a cable buy for them in their core markets. And we used a kind of a tonnage strategy. So again, trying to get as many people as possible to look at it as cost effectively as possible. And then, so that was a huge part of the buy. And then the other part of the buy was more of that, the performance side, right? Like, what's the digital tactics we're going to do to like hone in on people who are looking to come to a restaurant right now. And that combination, and by the way, the budget was split. I would say about 75% was in that cable buy, and the rest was in the digital side, the performance side. And it did extraordinarily well. It was the most successful new product introduction they've ever had in the history of the company. It drove incredible amounts of money to the bottom line for them. And as you can imagine, like it wasn't just the marketing. Like, they obviously came up with this amazing dessert, and they were able to execute it really, really well. It was a group dessert, so it was a shareable thing. So it cost, $25.
Talk about it.
Yes, and people talked about it. So here's the really great thing that happened with all of this. It was like magic was happening, and people were, the dessert would come out. People were filming it. They were filming their friends or their family members, smashing it, putting it in slow-mo. It was incredible.
I love
posting it on Instagram and Facebook and all over the place. And so Pretty 52 and Insider Dessert, these two online publications, saw this dessert trending and picked it up themselves and published it themselves without us asking for it.
That's so great.
We had 54 million incremental impressions from other publications.
Congratulations.
It was amazing. It was amazing. Thank you. And just a huge success story and a testament to this thinking, right? That you really need to build brand and drive performance together. You have to think about both of them and how you're going to build your plans around both of them to maximize the effect.
And you're creating this excitement. You're creating this, what's going on over here? Like, that's what you got to do. And you can do that with anything.
Yeah. You can do it with anything.
You can do that with anything. Mm-hmm. And like even if you're a boring old law firm, right, that's doing estate planning, you can still create excitement with that.
Yeah.
Doing wills and trusts.
I agree.
You can create excitement about that people are interested. Your clients will be interested. And that's what you're about.
Yeah.
If you're a podiatrist and you got bunions, create some excitement,
Yeah. Well, look what Dr. Brad did.
Dr. Brad, I know. Like, always doing that stuff. Exactly.
Incredible. Well, here's a story too. One of my friends is a lawyer. She has a law group in Connecticut. Her law group was called the Bauer Group, like typical lawyer, right? And typical lawyer's brand name. She used her name. But she decided that was too confining. She wanted to be more than just her name, and she wanted to have a legacy to live beyond her. And so she's in family law. And so she created she kind of sunset her traditional name and went to Happily Even After is the name of her firm. Happily Even After. Isn't that fantastic?
That's smart.
Yes, so smart.
Yeah.
And she's written books and she has a podcast and she has a conference now. And so it's just really brilliant to me, and that's that same idea. It's like, how do we build brand and, and get people excited about what we're talking about? And how do we separate ourselves? She did an amazing, it's just so disruptive. It's such a different way to think about it.
And that's a really hard thing to do. It's really hard to separate your ego.
Mm-hmm.
right? Especially for lawyers and doctors to separate their ego away from it and say, this is not about me. This is about the business, the firm, the brand. How do I keep this going on after me? You're exactly right.
Yeah, definitely. So it's just it's a unique way to think about it, at least in that space, and it's worthy of thinking about. And then how, again, like, how do you market all of that and attract attention?
Right. And so how does one develop a branded podcast?
So, good question. When we did the work with McAfee, we started with an idea, of what the show might be. And it was actually a little challenging, to tell you the truth, because I think most companies go to this idea of, oh, a podcast is two people talking to each other, like more of a, an interview format. And that's fine, and it's fine for a lot, but we knew for McAfee that we had to do something different. And I would suggest anyone else who's thinking about a branded podcast to think about, how do we do it different? Of the sea of millions of podcasts that are out there, how do we stand out? And format is one way to stand out. And so our format was very, very different. There was no other security podcast out there that did it with this style. In terms, and what I'm talking about is that marriage of, Mr. Robot meets Mythbusters meets cybersecurity advocacy, and being in very storytelling and very engaging and entertaining. And so, I would say that first, and what would, even to back up before that, I would say, don't jump in just because it's the hot thing to do and the new thing to do. Like, make sure it aligns with your vision and your strategy. Is this a good thing for you to do as a business? How am I going to execute it? I think that's the other thing.
It's a lot of work to do a podcast.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
And you have to be in it for the long haul. There are so many podcasts that just stop existing after, I think the number under 10 episodes is really, really high. So really think about, how are you going to do this long term? Do you have the budget to do it long term? The budget, not only on production side, but the marketing side. And so that was the other thing that we, I was saying, we had some challenges, and we had some challenges with McAfee wanting it to just be kind of two talking heads. We convinced them not to do that and to make it really entertaining. So that was challenge number one overcome. But challenge number two is to really, commit to it from a time, like think about it as multiple seasons, and budget from, we need to market this and it's one thing to produce it, but you need people to listen to it,
right?
To have the full effect.
You need your numbers.
Absolutely. So I think, that's really important. And then, it's the ongoing part. So, like, thinking about topics and guests and things like that to keep it going. And I think, the two things that come out for me and all the work that we've done with McAfee and others, by the way, we do work right now with Flame Bearers, is that you have to have this combination of creative bravery, meaning that you're making something that your audiences love, not that you love, but that your audiences are going to love, and set the bar really high, because there's lots of competition out there. And then the second part is, commitment. Make sure you're doing everything that you can to support the content. And so some of it might be advertising, but the other is, like, use all of your other channels, right? Promote it on your website, promote it through your newsletter, promote it in your social media, use your internal team to promote it. So you really have to make sure you commit everything you can to getting it to go. And that's what we did. And again, just amazing results.
Podcasting is another medium that has come out, but you're right. It requires a lot of resources. It's not just something that you can just easily turn on.
No, definitely not.
Do you guys have one? Do you do one?
So we decided
response?
not to do our own.
Yeah.
Instead, we, are definitely open to talking to other people on their podcasts and sharing our voice that way. And the reason why we haven't created our own yet is because we feel like we need that distinctive hook. And we're debating that, what is
Well,
that
you've
for
got
us?
plenty, Carolyn. And it's been so wonderful to have you on my podcast, The
Oh.
World of Marketing. And I'm usually talking to SEO people, and so this has been fantastic, just talking to a marketer that just does it all. And I miss that. I
Yeah.
miss kind of that all-encompassing view
Mm.
of like oh, the web is just a piece of the puzzle. The web and social media, that's just a piece of what we're doing. We've got to be thinking about all of these other things and the creative piece of it. I miss doing that. I come from the software business back before the internet, and put boxes on shelves and CompUSA was, remember CompUSA?
Oh yeah, that was
Oh
a
yeah.
Logitech retailer for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. So I might have run into each other back in the day. And, but I just love that era of, and
Yeah, seeing the full picture. It's actually one of the reasons why I left the advertising world early in my career. I worked at Saatchi, was because I didn't want to just do the advertising. I wanted to see the whole picture. And so I
yeah,
made the move to the client side, and that's where my eyes were really, opened up to. It is all of these pieces coming together and more, like in order to be a good marketer, you need to understand, product and pricing and purchasing and the financial side and all of that
you
too.
need to understand all of it. And especially in businesses need to understand that marketing is not an expense.
That's right.
It's an
Exactly right. It's an
investment.
investment. 100%. I think it's one of the biggest mistakes I see out there
Right?
is yes, it's seen as an expense. It's not an expense. When you do it right, it's an investment. It is going to grow your business.
Right. If you do
No
it
doubt.
right. If you do
If
it
you do it
right.
right.
If you
And
get
if you
with the
have
right
great product,
team, right.
exactly. If you have good product or great product and service, you have good operations or execution, and then you layer on the marketing, that's when you hit the home runs. That's when it works.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right. But so many lawyers, they look at it like it's like just an expense, and they cringe at it, and they don't support it enough, and that's why it fails.
Yeah,
So,
I totally agree with that. And I think it's not even just, with attorneys and law groups, it's there's a lot of businesses out there that
right.
have that same viewpoint. And it's the first thing to get pulled too when things get dicey, and that's not a good thing to do either. You got to stay in it, and you got to know that it's helping you long term, to survive and win.
So I love asking this question. Any big mistakes, like a big mistake a big boo-boo?
A big boo-boo.
Or have you just been flying high and you just are a
No.
marketing maven?
I don't know that I've always been flying high, but I can't think of a time that I've made a giant mistake. I think in general, mistakes are what we just talked about, thinking about marketing as an expense, not an investment. I think
Yeah,
a big mistake is not being brave creatively. Like,
yeah, that's a good one.
I think so many people hold back and are like, they're very conservative and concerned. And I think you just don't break through when you're not brave from a creative standpoint.
That's a good point.
Yeah. And I think the other big mistake is, and listen, maybe this is one I probably am responsible for too, myself being, younger and working on the client side, is getting stuck in that short-term pressure and that short-term thinking versus really thinking long-term. And okay, we're making this decision today, but and we know what it can do today, but what's the impact down the road? Both
Right.
positive and negative. I think that's huge, especially for publicly traded companies. They're living quarter to quarter.
Who are some of your mentors?
So one of my biggest mentors in my life was Tom Vogel. He and I worked together at Darden Restaurants, and he was in the promotions team before I got in the promotions team. And so he, when I went to Darden, I was really entry level, but got recognized for some of the things I was taking on, and I got promoted into his group, and he was phenomenal. Like I just learned so much from him. He was tough. He was really tough um and challenged me a lot and but I learned a lot. And so he was a huge mentor of mine throughout my career. Um and then, I think the other big influences on my thinking come from some of the names you might know in like, the brand and marketing space, like, Les Binet and Peter Fields. They are kind of the godfathers of, advertising effectiveness. They wrote a book called The Long and Short of It. Orlando Wood, who I happened to meet recently, which I just was like, I was so honored to meet this person that I admire so much. He wrote two books on the creative side of advertising called Lemon and Lookout. His most recent one is Lookout. And then on the strategy side, really a huge fan of David Acker. He wrote Building Strong Brands amongst, I think he's like 13 or 14 other books out there on marketing and branding. And then my other favorite one is Mitch Duckler, who wrote The Indispensable Brand. So I have a lot of people I follow and read, and and has really shaped a lot of my thinking, including people that I've worked with, and I've worked with some really, really brilliant marketers.
Do you have a favorite podcast that you?
Yeah, from a marketing, well, I listen to a lot of non-marketing, right? Because I'm just a podcast fan in general, like you heard me say. So This American Life is one of my go-tos, like in between podcasts. But the one strategy podcast that I love the most is called On Strategy. It's the On Strategy podcast by Fergus O'Carroll. It's brilliant. And you'll hear a lot of the names that I just mentioned who wrote those books. Some of those folks are guests on his podcast. Really great. And then the Marketing Week podcast I listen to a lot, as well as the Uncensored CMO.
Uncensored CMO.
Yeah, by John Evans. It's very good.
Very good.
Yeah.
What about any good conferences that you attend? What is your go-to conference?
Yeah, so we belong to the 4As, which is the largest advertising association in the country, and they put on several conferences. The one that I attend most is their StratFest conference, which is in New York City. It's coming up in October. It's awesome. And actually, that's how I got connected to Orlando Wood and actually met him through the 4As. So that one is fantastic. We do a lot of work in the B2B space as well. And so there's the B2B, the ANA B2B conference that's happening next week in Orlando, Florida. So that's another great one. There's so many. I mean, I've attended the Inc. conference before, which is fantastic for small businesses. Enjoyed that quite a bit. Yeah, those are a few of my top ones. Of course, the Ad Age Small Agency Conference I love. That's coming up in July.
What is that one?
The Ad Age Small Agency Conference.
Ad Age Small.
Yeah, you should look that one up. It's really, really good. And it's so helpful as a small agency, being around other small agencies and, being able to share kind of challenges and opportunities and, success stories and challenges and things like that. It's a great conference.
Where is that located?
That one, I think this year, if I'm not mistaken, is in Atlanta at the end of July.
Cool.
Yeah, it's very good.
Well, what are you are very busy and very accomplished, and I'm very impressed, and it's been wonderful having you. What are some daily rituals that keep you going?
So it's funny. I've said this a couple of times before, and people have told me this is so on brand of you, Carolyn. But some of my daily rituals, I listen to podcasts nearly every day. I just love the format, and I walk a lot, so it's great for me to go outside and walk and listen at the same time. You kind of get two things done at once. And so it keeps me on top of things that are happening. You listen to the news podcasts and things like that. And I just think, exercise in general is fantastic. So I do walk a lot. I play a lot of pickleball too, which everybody seems to be talking about lately.
Right. That is like the new trend is pickleball.
Yeah. And I think the other thing from a business perspective is, listen, we have a small agency. I have an incredible team. They're amazing. I would not be able to do what I do without them. They're fantastic. I trust them 100%. And we do stand-ups twice a week. So, we all kind of know what's going on, and people raise their hands for help or need advice, et cetera. It all happens during those stand-ups. And so it keeps things kind of running really well, on top of course, the software we use and things like that. But it's just a great vehicle that we found to kind
of bond. What are stand-ups?
So it comes from the dev space, and so a stand-up is meant to be a short meeting, and they're called stand-ups because you're not sitting, you're standing up for 15 minutes or so. Ours last maybe a little bit longer than that, but our stand-up format is of our team, each time we have a stand-up on a Tuesday or a Thursday, one of our team members leads it, and they talk about kind of what's some random kind of good news. So we always start off with good news, which is really nice. And it could be something about the agency. It could be something about a client. It could be something about just in general, something that's happening with space technology or AI or whatever it might be. So they talk about good news. They talk about things that they're thinking about, and then they actually show work that they're working on with active clients. And so it's just a way for us to kind of connect, and being in this hybrid space, not everybody is in the office all the time.
That's what I was wondering. Do you have everybody in the office, or
it's a mix, it's hybrid. So and we don't dictate a day that everyone needs to be in the office, unless we have something that we're scheduling, that we all meet together to do something together, a collaboration session or a brainstorming or something like that. So it's very mixed in terms of hybrid work. And so because of that, with these stand-ups happening in the virtual space, they're on Zoom, we all, get together, we go through all of these things and kind of where projects stand. And if any, like I said, it's an opportunity for people to raise hands or, or talk about any issues that might have, they foresee, or any, good news too, like how well things are going and kind of client reactions and things like that. So it's just an opportunity for us to stay on track, which is great.
I do that every day, every morning. We call it our morning meeting, our morning huddle, and we do that every day for 15
That's great.
minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It works, right? It works.
Yeah. And I did that before pandemic hit, when I had an office and I had 30 people in the office.
Yeah.
And then pandemic, and it was like half virtual.
Yeah.
And half the people were in the office, half the people were, because they're spread across the country.
Right.
And then when the pandemic hit, we just went all virtual.
Virtual. Yeah.
And that's the way we've been. I'm out of that building in Fairfax and in a place in Old Town Alexandria now. But we're still virtual.
Yeah, same with us too. Our space is tiny. We went from, like 25 or 2,600 square feet down to like a tiny little place. It's under 1,000 square feet,
right.
And a lot less expensive.
Right. And you can get great talent from all over the place.
Yes, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. We just hired our new copywriter, is from Brooklyn, New York. He's, far from us.
That's great.
It's awesome. Yeah.
Well, it has been a pleasure talking to you and getting to know you better.
Likewise. Thanks for having me, Tom.
Yes. Thank you so much for being on it. And it's
Response.agency.
Yes, God. Response.agency is the website, and everybody, it is a beautiful website. Take it from somebody that builds them. I was really impressed with this one. Very cool. You're a very cool lady. You got a very cool company. You're doing cool things with cool other companies. We didn't even talk about the cigar company. Yeah, I like
next time, Tom.
Yeah, next time. Okay, well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Carolyn Walker. This has been The World of Marketing with Carolyn and Tom Foster. Everybody, you have yourselves a wonderful day.